There's a way to be a man while also understanding that empathy isn't always a weakness. There's a line with everything, and that balance, nuance of the time to be competitive and cutthroat versus when to be empathetic and compassionate.
Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Brotherhood of Fatherhood. I'm your host, Scott Ramage, and today I have with me Ryan King. Ryan is an entrepreneur, business owner, and he writes incredible content on Instagram. That's how I found him, all based on wisdom, manhood, relationships, mindset, fatherhood, leadership, personal growth, all the things that I care tremendously about. But this man has a way with the words and word imagery that you really need to know about. We're going to dig into his why and the big picture. But first, I just want to make sure that you have heard about our event coming up this September in Montana. We're calling it the Big Event Montana 2022. We're going to have tactical weapons training by ridiculously talented and sought after instructors. We're going to have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training, and we're going to roll together. We're going to have incredible leaders in many areas talking to you on events and subjects that matter from in your world. We're going to push you to learn and become better. We're going to go on an epic 9/11 ruck. We're going to earn some money for some amazing things, amazing people. And we're going to have just an incredibly bonding time. So that's brotherhoodfatherhood.com/events. Go check it out. Get on the list. We're only taking 40 guys, and it's going to be epic. Ryan, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
It's been interesting. I've known since I saw you on Instagram that there was something a little different here. And I don't want to pump you up too much, but your content is out of this world. There's just a gift that you have of telling the story that men need to hear, the truth in so many different contexts. Like I read before, being a father, being a husband, being a leader, all those things are what I'm incredibly passionate about. And I'm not jealous, but I really do wish I had that gift. It's just incredible. And now here I am, like just totally pumping you up. But there's so much that you're doing with your words, and I had to meet you. So welcome, man. It's going to be fun talking to you.
I know. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So when we met or chatted the first time, I kind of got this idea. You've been an entrepreneur, you've created your own businesses. And it seems to me, and I'm just projecting here or guessing perhaps, that you're at a place in life where you've kind of done that thing and it's time to give back bigger.
Yes. That's a very good summary of kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So let's talk through that journey, because, a lot of men are on the other side of this journey. They're just trying to get their businesses started. A lot of men really desire to be entrepreneurs. And quite honestly, there's a lot of men living numbly through their lives, just gliding and not doing anything that's really helping anybody, including themselves. And that's really the target I want to hit. Like I want those guys we want a fire under their ass, right? We want them to get up and just go. So like, take me back to that origin of where you went from, business owner, father, husband to I need to lead in this area.
Yeah. So, for me, when I was starting my business, I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, you expect it to be something where it takes you quite a while. And it didn't really take me as long as I thought to get where I wanted to go. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I think a lot of it, my personal business that I'm in, it didn't fulfill me creatively. It was more something that was just about, I know this is going to provide for my family. I know it's going to be lucrative. But it wasn't something that was intellectually stimulating, so, really for me, as far as why I started writing, I guess it's really twofold. Number one, I vividly remember being a young man and feeling unprepared. You know, and I'm about to write, you know, a post series on kind of that touches on this, but I just felt like there were all these things that I needed to know how to do as a man that I didn't have no idea how to do. And so when I have two sons, and so when I had my first son, I started basically just an Evernote. I'm a huge note taker. You know, it's a lot of men journal. I don't journal. I just have thoughts, where I'll just jot it down in my Evernote and hashtag it with something so I can come back to it, and it's just therapeutic for me. Because if not, I'll sit and stew on it. You know, anyway. So um, when I had my sons, I just kind of started keeping a notebook in my Evernote with just lessons that I learned that I wish I'd have known, that, you know, I wanted to teach them when they got to the age where they were old enough to understand them. And so I guess about a year ago, I just kept getting a lot of feedback from people in my life telling me, you know, you need to speak up, you need to write something, you know, you need to do something. And so I kind of decided to turn that you know, 12-year accumulation of notes just into a book called The Wisdom of Kings. And that's where the name of my Instagram page comes from. And it's really meant to convey like my family legacy of wisdom, not as in like my personal wisdom. I want something to hand down to them. So that was the original kind of impetus for me. Where a lot of the content comes from is just, it's actual lessons that I've learned that, you know, I had to learn the hard way as I was becoming a man, you know. So it's a lot of, you know, you're seeing the end of the journey right now. But most of the content is stuff that's from the middle of the journey, when I was in the middle of it. You know, and then, you know, the second reason I feel like I started speaking up was just, and I touch on this a lot in my content. I'm just tired of the wrong men defining masculinity. I'm tired of it. So I want to speak up. I feel like there's you know, you see a lot of, you know, negative, you know, commentary about men, about how they're soft, about how, you know, this generation is weak and things like that. And I just don't believe that. You know, I think that's a lack of leadership. I think there's a lot of men out there that want to be good men, that want to improve. They just don't know where to start. They need a guide. You know, men need guides. You know, I feel like a lot of times, and this is just my theory, and I've talked to my wife about it. My wife, a lot of her growth and maturity as a woman was instinctual. You know, it's intuitive, and so it's far more natural if a woman just follows her instincts, that she'll mature and blossom into a woman. You know, I don't think men have that same journey. I think manhood is something that you have to be taught. You know, you have to have a role model. You have to have a guide to it. And so to me, I feel like the state of manhood being where it is right now in society is just a lack of role models. You know,
Yeah.
and for me, I feel self-conscious saying, "Hey, I'm a role model," but given, you know, everybody else that is putting their name out there and elevating themselves as like, "Hey, look at me and follow me." I'm not perfect, but I'm a better role model than them. So I'll share my journey, and if it helps you, then, you know, great. I hope it does, and I think it will.
So I love it. I want to kind of dive into some of your content and
Yeah.
like ask you some questions. But first, I want some specifics. If you're comfortable doing this, you don't have to name names, but what are some of the bad definitions of, or the wrong men defining masculinity? Like, I know you kind of touched on it, but what are some specific things? Because I personally have, I follow a lot of men and I see a lot of content and things being said and things thrown out. And I'm like, yeah, they're missing the mark. And that's pretty common. And so I'm curious if we align on this. I'm not going to tell you how I feel or what I feel about, but I'm curious if we align on this, and then we can discuss it, whether I do or don't.
Yeah, I've never, you know, I haven't written anything about that, so I don't know that my thoughts are like as clear as the stuff that I've written. You know, because as I write, I kind of process things, you know, out loud. It's, you know, a lot of it's more of a kind of like a journal in a way, but
Yeah.
you know, just off the cuff, I would say a a lot of the content I see about manhood that I've been exposed to through social media, it sounds like it's written by, 20-year-old kids in India that don't really know what manhood actually is.
Right.
They have no experience, and it's just destructive, And so for me, I look at it as, when I say the wrong kind of men, it's like everything. It's so divided. There's two extremes. You've got soft men that, make excuses and say, "Oh, it's okay," and there's no accountability. It's like, dude, not everything's okay. Sometimes you got to get off your ass and do something. It's not okay to just sit and whatever you did, mistakes you made, like you got to have accountability. So I don't like that because that's not right. But then on the other extreme, you have the hyper masculine, like everything is about. It's basically hungry hippos. Like I'm going to get mine, and I don't care if you get in it. And it's like, dude, what you don't understand as a man is that there's consequences for everything. Like the world doesn't work that way. You can't just take and take and take and take and expect everybody to just be okay with it. Like a lot of men, to me, my goal in business has always been, I want to be super successful in business. And I don't want to have any dead bodies that I have to worry about coming behind me and tearing me down afterwards. There's a way that you can go about being competitive. There's a way you can go about winning. There's a way you can go about being successful and still have honor and still have integrity and still have a good reputation. It's not mutually exclusive. And so those are the men that really piss me off, are the ones that's like, dude, you're the reason that capitalism has gotten the bad name that it's gotten, because 100%. You give no thought to the context and the consequences of coming in and just, you have these corporate raiders come in and they just lay everybody off and cut everything to the bone. And it's all about profits for the next quarterly earnings report on Wall Street. And it's like, yeah, keep that up. And nobody's going to be able to make any money anymore, because that's morally wrong. I don't care if anybody likes it. There's got to be a line where you can't just do whatever you want. And I'm a business owner. I'm a capitalist. I've made a lot of money. I've been competitive. But the cost of that type of behavior in business or in manhood or in marriage, I feel like so many of the things that we're fighting back against culturally, whether it's defending capitalism or defending masculinity or, all these things, if men would have handled their business voluntarily and been moral and virtuous and honorable in the 80s and 90s, then the people that are attacking us right now wouldn't have the ammunition to attack us with. And that's 100%. What pisses me off.
Yeah.
That's what pisses me off, is there's a way to be a man while also understanding that that empathy isn't always a weakness. There's a line with everything, and that balance, nuance of the time to be competitive and cutthroat versus when to be empathetic and compassionate. It's not either or. No. That's not reality. And so for me, I'm speaking from my own personal experiences of, I've been there, I've done this. There is a way to go about doing this that doesn't require those extremes. Here's how I did it. I'm not just bullshitting anybody. Like, I've lived it.
Yeah. Well, so I'll share with you what I've seen. Two edges of the opposite spectrum here, and maybe not as refined as yours. So I'll just go straight for the jugular. But yesterday I did a search, and I was like, top podcasts on masculinity, top Instagrams on masculinity. And I don't know if it was like SEO, but almost all of the top lists that came to me were all about fashion. And I was like, really? Fashion is how we define masculinity? And I don't know if that's like a Google algorithm thing or why. And I'm like, that's not what I'm interested in. Like that, when I talk about masculinity, like I'm going to wear a baseball cap and a t-shirt, and the rest I could give a flying shit about. So, and I'm going to dress appropriately when I need to dress appropriately, but that's not the game. The other end. So it's kind of like this soft, appearance-based, shallow thing. Yes. And I don't follow any of that. I was just really surprised that that's what came up in the searches. And on the other end is the militant, you need to be beat to hell before you become a man. And like, look, I did not go through the armed services. I kind of, I sometimes I kind of wish I had, because there's this internal like thing.
Me too.
Yeah, it's like I want to have been pushed really hard. I want to have gone through that. So for me, I find the balance in, I want to present opportunities and challenges for men where they go find their own challenge. They define their challenge they're going to do every day, whether it's through business, whether it's through doing physical work, whether it's becoming committed. I use commitment over discipline. Like, I am going to stick with something if I make a commitment. Discipline comes and goes. But if you're committed, I'm committed to my family.
Happens.
Exactly.
Committed, discipline happens.
Exactly. Like, I'm committed to providing the best vessel for my wife as I can. Therefore, I'm going to work out every day. I'm committed to living a long life and healthy life so I can enjoy my kids, my grandkids, and all of that. Therefore, I have to do the things that keep my body in the place I want it to be. That's kind of a mindset. So, like, for me, it's this challenge, this thing that makes men work outside of their comfort zone to continually grow. And your content just does that. It just does that because at the root, it challenges. And without going in and opening each specific one, I mean, one that I think I commented on was, the man in the mirror, and really that reflection. And so, talk us through the man in the mirror.
I feel like that's one of the most important things that you could talk about. As far as what I've written, that one doesn't always get the most comments and views, but to me, that's, so as far as those life lessons and kind of the story behind it, I remember reading a book probably 12, 15 years ago when I was first starting my business, and it was talking about the traits of the most successful companies. They had a mirror versus window mentality. You can either look in the mirror and blame yourself, or you can look out the window and blame somebody else. And very few companies always looked in the mirror. And for me, one of the things that I think isn't talked about nearly enough, that I'm in the middle of writing a post about right now, is, reflection, just personal reflection. We have this idea of, we glorify these honor cultures like the samurai or the Spartans or whatever, and we glorify the skills that they have, which are nothing wrong with that. Skill acquisition is important as a man. What we don't realize is, the samurai trained for 4 or 5 hours a day. The other 19 hours a day, when they weren't sleeping, they were thinking. They had to confront their thoughts. They had to confront their failures. They had to confront themselves as men. And that's the real crucible of becoming a man, is having no escape from your failures, having no escape from your fears, your insecurities. You can't just mindlessly avoid, who you are and distract yourself. Those men had, as they were marching to battle, you want to talk about, where did their courage come from? Where did their bravery come from? Well, those dudes marched for 3 straight days with nothing else to do but realize, I'm probably going to die at the end of this.
Right.
That's where their bravery came from. It was the thought and reflection. It wasn't the actions. And so that's something that I think I really, really want to drive home to men, is like, dude, a lot of feeling like a man is mastering your mind. And you're not going to master your mind unless you sit and you own up to every failure and learn from it and realize what you could have done to improve from it. So for me, and whether it's in the context of marriage, whether it's in the context of, just across the board, I never worry about anybody but me. Nobody, if I know that if I, in my business, my competitors are Fortune 500 companies, and for a long time it was me and 2 other people. And I was going up against, Bank of America, and it's me in a broom closet. And I can't worry about my competitors. All I can do is go execute what I know to do. And if I go be me, nobody's going to be better at being me than me. I don't have to worry about anybody else. And so literally in every aspect of my life, I, I don't care what my wife does. I don't ever point the finger at her. I look at it and say, okay, even if I'm only 5% responsible for what's going on right now, if I execute on the 5% that I can control, everything in life will work itself out. And I cannot stress that enough. We've only got a limited amount of time to talk about this stuff, but I'm talking about the most radical, responsible version of that I can possibly convey with words. Only ever blame the mirror. If you are
100%.
perfect if you are perfect at blaming the mirror, then everything else in life will work out just fine. If you have the right time frame, you know, that's the reality. You know, not every single thing you do is going to work moment by moment. You know, like, you know, I did a lot of, I was in sales a lot, so I didn't get every single sale. Nobody closes every single sale. But I always blame the mirror. You know, if I didn't close the sale, I didn't say, "Oh, that customer's stupid," or they're too dumb to understand it. It's like, no, there's something I could have done differently that would have prevented that outcome. How do I learn from it and move on?
Mhm.
Period. I spend no time thinking about if that person was fair or whatever, or something that I can't control. And that doesn't help me win every single sale. But over the course of a year, I get a lot more sales than the guy that's sitting there blaming other people for why he didn't get the sale. You'll
What
never ever beat me if you're blaming other people while I'm looking in the mirror. Over the long term, you're unstoppable if all you focus on is you.
I like that imagery. I like the mirror. I've always and I picked this up from someone else, you know, everything is from somewhere. I always talked
Sure.
about if you're standing in the gravel, like literally take a stick and then walk a circle with that stick planted in the ground. When you're done, you're going to have this circle in the ground around you. And all you need to focus on in your marriage, in your career, as being a parent, as being a son, a father, whatever it is whoever is in that circle. And it's
Hmm.
just freaking you. It's
Yeah.
you. If you missed a sale, if you didn't succeed in your business, it doesn't matter if the market crashed. The only thing you have to control is within that circle. And there is
Hmm.
something, a decision, an action, or something that you did that did or did not get you the results you want. Pay attention to that. That's the answer to getting where you want to get. And
Hmm.
I just don't, you know, I have zero tolerance for people who blame, you know, the economy or blame, you know, their circumstances. They're being raised. I can't be a good father because I wasn't raised a good father. I don't have an example. And I think that's bullshit. I think
Hmm.
that's, you're passing the buck, but the buck stops
Yeah.
here. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
love that. I loved it. I think there's just so much control that you have to give up because really the only thing you have any control over is yourself. And you said it yourself. And I call this the 100% principle. It's really kind of dumbed down. It's a lot of people talk about this, but literally it's marriage is not a 50-50. For a
Yeah.
man, it's 100%. The other percent doesn't matter. I don't care if your wife is giving a 2% effort towards you.
Yep.
That
And
100%
that's,
you put
yeah.
in is going to equate to
Well,
something different.
and I think if I could just add on one piece to the whole concept of the mirror mentality, um, the best way I could say to make that like the new paradigm you operate from is to literally stop even wondering about results.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're cooking and you have a certain recipe, right, and you know that it works because you've done it, you don't sit there and constantly, I don't put it in the oven to bake or put it on the grill and sit there and wonder how it's going to turn out. I know how it's going to turn out
Mm-hmm.
because I've done it, right? So I think the easiest way to implement that mirror mentality is to just own up to the mirror. If you're a young man listening to this that doesn't know, just trust experienced men like you and I with what we're saying. The results will take care of themselves. Like, you cannot, you know, from a sales standpoint, you know, I've made thousands of sales in my life. I've trained a lot of salespeople. The salespeople that worry about results fail. They're only as good as their momentum and how they feel that day. You're going to have too much failure in sales if you're worried about results to be successful over the long term. It won't work. Same thing goes with fitness. You can't go to the gym every day and get on the scale and say, oh, I haven't lost any weight today. I'm not better to, like, what are you expecting to happen? The only thing you're doing is setting yourself up to be discouraged by worrying about results. If you just go to the gym over and over again every day and eat less than and burn more calories than you consume, it will work. It will, and you know it. So stop worrying about results. Just go to the gym and do it over and over and over and over and over again until it works. It's not hard. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
The same thing in sales, same thing in marriage, same thing in person. There's not a single facet of life that it does not apply to. Completely forget about all results. It does not matter how your wife responds. If you just worry about you, she will respond the right way, the way you want her to respond eventually. But just like looking at the scale every day, if you're trying to get in shape, you can't judge the success or failure of taking ownership in your marriage on a moment-to-moment basis and changing your strategy. Like, oh, I took ownership today and it didn't work, and she was mean to me, so I'm going to stop taking ownership. Well, then you just sabotage yourself. Give it a year. Give it 2 years. I've been married for 13 years. There's things that took me 10 years of looking in the mirror before my wife finally started reacting the way that I wanted her to react. And you know what? It was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it because I know without a doubt that if you just execute what you can control flawlessly over and over and over again, success it's impossible to fail. It's impossible to fail.
Yeah. And I would even say if the world defines it as failure, I don't believe it's failure if you learn something from it.
Exactly.
Right. And
yeah.
I think that concept is really, really, really difficult for a lot of men to understand when it comes to their marriage. Just do the thing. But my business partner, we were talking about this, and he's like, she just doesn't do the dishes. I'm like, find joy in doing the dishes and expect nothing in return. And 2 years later, he's like, I find so much joy in doing the dishes. She never does the dishes, but now I find joy in it, and I know it's paying off. And I'm like, that's right. That's right. That's the thing. I mean, it's mm-hmm. like, did you make an agreement when you got married to only, push what she's pulling on, or only do the same amount of work as she did? No, you came into this with, I am giving you my all, and I am responsible for me. And you talked about something, kind of a shift here, but you talked about something really struck a chord with me. First of all, you may or may not agree with me, but my value ladder for me is my faith is number one. And that's hard for some people to understand that that's above my wife. But I believe that those really wrap together, especially since we have similar beliefs. But she comes before my kids. And I tell them that. I tell my boys, like, your mom she's first. Like, before I serve you, I serve her. And I believe that's serving her. You really talk about your relationship, not specifically you and your wife, but you talk about having this relationship with a partner. You say things like, she wants a partner, not a project. You say, like, you are in love with where she is at. Like, and I think I saw something, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but where every stage as you've been married, you fall in love with the way she looks. You fall in love with her appearance. And that really, really is a game changer. If men could plug into this, I am in awe. I absolutely love looking at you, instead of like, you could look like this, or you used to look like this. So tell me why that came up, and let's speak about that a little bit.
Honestly, I remember just randomly thinking that idea probably 11 years ago, and when we first got married. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of role models, and listen, my parents were great. My parents are still married. I had a great father. I write about my dad um, I just don't think it was normal to be real vocal with your kids when we were growing up, and
Yeah.
really they kind of just trusted the school system to do the raising, and so there was just kind of this void on a lot of practical stuff that I think our generation is doing a better job at. But so for me, I didn't know how to be a good husband or a good dad or whatever. So I just kind of had to play mind games with myself. I was an athlete, and so for me, everything has like a, a gamification element to it. Like how do I turn it into a game with myself
Mm.
so that I have something to aim at, and that kind of keeps me on target. It's kind of my North Star. And so when it came to being a husband, I didn't really know what to do. So I kind of just came up with that idea of like, you know, a good man, his idea of beauty adapts, and I don't remember exactly how I wrote it either, but it basically his idea of beauty adapts to the changes in his wife's appearance. If and that's not trying to be romantic. That's natural. If you're focusing, like, you have to look at her and want to find her attractive, like it's like a decision almost, like
Right.
I think you can learn to be attracted to somebody if you try to. There's things you can look at to say I don't like this about her, or there's things that you can find. It's a glass half full, glass half empty. And so for me, it's like I'm just going to make a decision that I'm gonna focus what I find attractive on her, and not let it be dictated by whatever I see on Instagram or whatever I see in movies. And listen, I'm a man, like I see the same stuff that anybody sees on Instagram or on movies. And you have that primal masculine thing that, you just, a beautiful woman is beautiful. I mean, there's no getting around that, but you do have control and a choice over comparing your real life bride, who's a real person, to a woman that isn't. I'm not going to say real, because there are real beautiful women, but my wife doesn't have all day to sit and just focus on her appearance.
Right.
She's serving our family, she's being a great mom, she's got a lot on her plate. So I wouldn't want to be compared to Chris Hemsworth or some, you know what I mean? Like, I've got a real life too. I'm not sitting in training all day long every day, and I just feel like that's unfair to her. And I don't think it's ethically, morally right to sit and let your eyes and your mind, you know, there's one thing to it's one thing to find other women attractive. It's another thing to embrace it.
Right.
Like I do see the same things, and I have the same urges that any man has, but I don't think it's okay and that's not because of anything my wife has told me. I don't want to be that kind of man. It's a personal decision. I want to honor my wife. Um, and so I make a conscious effort, as much as a real human being can, um, to focus my attraction on her as something that, again, I can control by looking in the mirror. It's a commitment that I make in my mind. And I genuinely do. Like, we met when she was 19. She looked way different when she was 19 than she looks now at 35, but I
Yeah.
really genuinely am I'm more attracted to her now than I was when she was 19. And objectively, she would admit, like, yeah, every woman is more attractive at 19 than they are at 35 after two kids, but she's not to me, because we've grown together. So to me, to me, it's an honor thing. That's what a good man does. I don't want to be the type of man that I just think it's, I just think I have a check on my conscience when I hear men saying, comparing their wives, to these 19-year-old, 22-year-old women that haven't had kids and haven't had stress and haven't had life and all that stuff. And it's like, man, you realize that makes you an asshole, right? Like, nobody can compete with that. So to me, it's just, what kind of man do you want to be? I mean, you want to be a decent man, and you want to be a sleazeball.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it seems to me that a lot of the things you're talking about are a little bit opposite of current culture. with immediacy. Like immediacy. Yeah. Like I'm horny. There's some porn. There's another woman to look at. Like, and in the heat of the moment or in the weakness of your mind, sure, you're there. Or I want success now. And that's going to be a cutthroat thing because I want immediate. Yes, it's this immediacy of the dopamine hit from technology and such. And really, it seems to me that the theme is slow down, trust the process, and really, really dial yourself in. I mean, it really comes down to that.
You couldn't say it much better than that. I've kind of written a post about it, but I haven't posted it yet. There's a quote by Zig Ziglar that I've kind of modeled my mind after on a lot of these types of things. And it says, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs.
Yeah.
And I just love that imagery. Everybody, and to me, it's the social media. The reason this is going on is social media just rewards that. Everybody wants to be, you want to be on the highlight reel, to use like a baseball metaphor. It's like, you want to be the one on getting endorsements and seeing the grand slams and, and it's like, dude, that's not reality. Like, that's not reality. Like, that's why I'm trying to say, from the perspective of a man who's been there and done it, the shortcut thing, the immediacy thing, like, that's not reality. You're seeing the 1 in a million times that it works, and you're trying to replicate a process that, I'm not going to say it's luck, but you have no control. You have very little control over the outcome of that process. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you just take the stairs and you give yourself enough time frame, like, oh, you want to be at the mountaintop? Great. I do too. You need to have ambition. That's awesome. And you can try, to rent out a plane and skydive and land perfectly on top of the mountain. And yeah, you're going to get a lot of attention and you're going to get a lot of publicity and you're going to be famous and you're going to have all that stuff. But you're also probably going to die. Or here's a 100% guaranteed way of getting to the top of that mountain that's going to suck. And it's going to be really hard and nobody's going to glorify it and nobody's going to celebrate it. But I guarantee you, as the mountain climbing guide, if you just follow in my footsteps, it is inevitable that you will be at the top of that mountain. And that is some of the most just potent advice I would give to young men, is that you literally, if you can just mentally accept that it's not going to be immediate, but it's almost guaranteed to take the unsexy road, just put one foot in front of the other, execute the recipe over and over and over again, and it will work.
Yeah. Period. Social media, news outlets, all of that fail to show the real story behind overnight success. And typically it's a 10-year journey to overnight success. And we get this highlight reel and we don't see the work that it took to traverse the mountain. We don't see the work that it took to get to the point where how to get a good grip and be safe. All these analogies we come up with, but it is really something I contemplate a lot and worry a lot and talk to my boys a lot about. It's like, my son, my 17-year-old, he's turning 18. He's literally like engaged in this. What am I going to do? And I'm like, dude, you're young, go for a journey. He called me up to his room 2 weeks ago. He said, Dad, you got a lot of opportunities. And this isn't to blame. It's just to tell a story. He's like, you have multiple businesses. There's always stuff going on. There's people reaching out to you, wanting to collaborate and do these things. Like, how do I do that? How do you make that happen? And I said, hey, let's take Brotherhood. Let's take Brotherhood of Fatherhood, for example. I said, I've been doing podcasts for 2 years. I've talked to thousands of men, and I have not made a penny on it. And that work and I've spent a lot of money on it. That work, that tenacity, that connection is what has gotten me to now where I have opportunities. People are coming to me with opportunities. We've been able to do, get people to be interested in the things that we're doing. So that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It's not a minute.
In fairness, I feel like I've heard that my whole life. Even that's one thing I feel like as a young man I did know to be conscious of, even before a lot of the social media stuff, was that it takes a decade to become an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I'm looking at it from the perspective of a 20-year-old man that might be listening to this right now, I feel like most of them know that. I think what's missing is that the men that do it the way we do it aren't stepping up and saying, "Hey, I'll take you with me to the top of the mountain." And that's what I really have a heart for, is like, I think there's a lot of young men, and based on the feedback I've been getting from Instagram, there's a lot of young men that they're fine with buying into the process. They're fine with not being an overnight success and putting in
That's
the work,
awesome.
But what I feel like is missing is like the recipe book of like, okay, I get it. You have to put in 10 years of work, but what do you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of work? Like, what are the steps? Like, I'll do it. I don't mind spending 10 years to become an overnight success. I think that a lot of that's hyperbole, where like we see that, but I think there's a lot of men out there that really would embrace the process and buy in. What I feel like we're lacking, what I'm trying to fill a void on, is like, here's what to do every day. And over the course of 10 years, if you do these things, it will work. And so like my series on radiance, that's really what it's about. And I try to go, and I put in there over a long time frame. This is a long-term goal of mine for my wife. This is something that I seek in marriage, not in dating. And so I feel like if you take what I apply in that series on radiance and you behave that way in your marriage, over a 10-year time frame, you'll have a great marriage. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is to kind of fill that gap where it's like, first of all, you got to buy into the process. So I got to sell them on that first. But second of all, here's the process to follow. And that's the part that I don't feel like I had, was here is the process to follow, guys. Like I needed an older man to say, follow this process and it will work. And right now the process is being told to young men is a lie. Go to college, blindly get a degree, go work for a corporation and do all this stuff. And then it doesn't work out. And then they're bitter because they were fed a lie by society that they tried to follow and execute the recipe that they were told, and it didn't work. So now they're bitter. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a college degree. I figured this shit out like the hard way. And so what I'm trying to do now is just be very, like, just live out loud in front of men and say, here's where I failed. Here's what I learned from it. Here's the recipe to follow. And I don't try to make it sexy. I don't try to make it appealing. I try to make it demanding, and I try to tap into that primal thing that, I feel like I hope a lot of men have, where they respond to challenge, so here's what I'm challenging you to do in your marriage. And here's the why. And it's not going to pay off immediately, but I promise you, as somebody that has climbed this mountain before, it will work. You will get to the top of the mountain if you just repeatedly execute this process over and over and over again. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the void comes in, is the lack of that, what process to follow part, and it's easy to sit and preach at young men like, oh, you can't try to be an overnight success. It's like, okay, well, if you're saying that, you need to follow that up with, okay, well, how do I be a 10-year success then? And I haven't seen anybody doing that part.
Well, and I think that's probably why people are commenting and asking questions and following your content, because it isn't just, hey, here's the problem. It's here's the something, and here's what you need to do. I've kind of found that with yours. And the good thing is I'm like, okay, we think alike. You just were really eloquently like put it out there. But I have heard a lot of people. I have personally had a lot of people, men specifically through our group reach out to me independently, like message me and like, I want to start a business. What do I do? And it's Well, one, you just have to start. Like the word that you started that with, and you need to find a mentor. You need to find the manual. Like and that takes work, or it either takes money or it takes work. It's no one's just going to come up to you and say, "Hey, can I guide you through this process?" You have to go out and step out of your comfort zone, and you have to do the things to get in that place where you can really walk in someone's footsteps, because that path is out there and there's many ways to take it. Most of them are following a seasoned person who will take you through a not specifics, but a guideline of how you move in that position. And a lot of
apprenticeships.
Yes.
It's like apprenticeships that that's how we've passed down knowledge for thousands of years. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And
I think the part for me that even already with just through my Instagram, I've already gotten messages from a lot of people that said, how did you grow so fast?
They want to know.
How did you? Yeah, and it's the same process that I used to grow my business. It's like intensity, like manic attention to detail. Every little thing matters. Like there's not one set rule. You have to cover all of your bases. Like not in a given post. It's fascinating in social media to see, what jumps out. Like if I get 500 shares, it's all different stuff that they share. Like one sentence jumps out to one person and another sentence jumps out to another person. And some people like it because of the cover, and some people like it because of the font, and some people like it because of, the bullet points, and some people like it because of, the beautiful way it's written. And it's like, if you want to be successful, you have to be perfect at all of it, and that it's no different than, like a basketball player, like you can be the greatest shooter in the world. You can be a great defender or whatever. You got to be able to dribble. Like there's a certain minimum standard of across the board, everything that you have to be excellent at more than just one aspect. You can be a great writer. You're not going to get any traction on Instagram or whatever if you don't know how to make it look good, because that's what a lot of people are going to click on it just because of, does the image pull them in and look at and grab them or not? And I did the same thing in my business. Like I wrote every single person that gave me the time of day. I wrote them a handwritten thank you note. Like I probably wrote 5,000 thank you notes. Like, right. And I only know for sure that three people did. To three people specific. I don't know about the other 5,000. You know what I mean? Like it's a trying to be successful. It's a combination of hundreds of being tenacious and detailed on hundreds of different things, and all those things when taken together add up to something meaningful.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast.
A lot of people don't like that.
No,
they want the quick. They want the quick recipe, and it's like the recipe is you have to be intense, and your enthusiasm for it and your love for it has to be so deep that you're willing to make every single thing perfect. Like Steve Jobs at Apple was like that. It's like just the packaging of what the iPhone came in had to get redone like 100 times, because it's like every single touch point of anything that had his name on it was going to be perfect. And that's why it became what it became. And if you really want to be successful, you can get lucky without having to do that, but you can guarantee success by making every single touch point immaculate, and that's one of the things that I've done with my business, that I'm trying to do with my Instagram. Is like, if somebody gives me their attention, I want their response to be, I'm glad that I gave that my attention.
Yeah. Everything
associated with my name, I want it to be of the highest possible quality that I'm capable of delivering.
I've been studying Instagram. It's not something I've been very interested in, but I've been studying it. I'm probably been in that mode for 8 months, maybe a year, not doing anything. Just the stuff that goes up, whatever. But some patterns I've noticed really kind of attribute to what we're talking about. One, I'm studying it so I know what works and I can see what works and I understand that because it doesn't come natural to me. And I know that in order for it to be successful, I've got to look at what works and what doesn't. I've noticed, however, and maybe you have too, after learning about a few of the tricks, that it's very easy to go in and buy an Instagram. There's literally people who build Instagrams just to build followers and then sell it. And then you strip all the material and you put your own up and you automatically have 10K. I know the site to go to.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yep. You can also buy followers and then bots will comment. And it's all AI built. And so I've learned and I've really respected these men. Oh man, I've respected these guys for the great following they have. And I've done this with 4 or 5 guys that I followed. And I started looking at the comments and I started looking at the followers and I started to pick up the patterns. That's something that I think everybody needs to be aware of. There's a lot of imposters out there. There's a guy that I know and I've interviewed and he's great. And he's got like 20,000 followers on Instagram and he gets 1,000 comments or so. There's nothing in those comments that makes sense. It's all like emoji.
That.
Yes.
Yeah, I have seen that.
That's the equation they're using. They're going in and buying. So I went and looked and I'm like, oh, okay, here's one with 10,000 followers. What's the content? And I didn't even know this. And it was this lady's name. And I was like, okay, well, it's a porn star. They're using this porn star's name to build a massive following. They have like 2 pictures. And I didn't know this. I'm like, and I had to look it up because I don't follow that stuff. And I'm like, so I can go buy this Instagram that was based on some porn star or some porn thing. And then I can plug then I have a bunch of weirdos following me or a bunch of, and I'm like,
no kidding.
What good is this? But what good is it is it's beating the algorithm. So when somebody like you, I don't know if you, Kurt, dad.work.
He and I talked several times.
You guys have this content that I want to read every single time it comes out. I want to take the time to reflect and swipe through and see what they are. And then I go and read the comments and it's all authentic. And so I basically want to say, take that as an example, everybody. Like do the work that is worth following and don't try to create shortcuts because people see through the other stuff. And so I really appreciate about that. I appreciate that you're going out there and you're pushing the envelope and you're doing what it takes to get a message out that is so incredibly important. What is the one thing that fires you up the most that you're like, I got to change this in the world?
I don't know that it would be I got to change it in the world as much as like the thing that fires me up the most and motivates me the most is just it's more aspirational just for me personally to be. I challenge myself again. It's the mirror thing. I challenge myself to embody like an ideal that other men would want to emulate for the right reasons, not from like a hero worship standpoint or anything like that, but like that's a real guy with a good family. It's a good person that he makes me want to be better, in a real practical way, not because I'm famous or because of, like for most of the reasons, like we idolize, TV, athletes and musicians and all that stuff, but just like, and so that's what motivates me. I operate so much in that mirror mentality that it's hard for me to even say like what I want to change in the world. I just try to be the change, like what Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's really, I challenge myself to be the kind of person that other men would want to be friends with, would want to, have advice from, that would feel, that people could relate to and say, I like that guy. That I want the people that follow me to feel comfortable to message me and say, hey, can I ask your opinion about something? Because I want to really make a tangible difference in people's lives. I want to be, a good I think a lot of women are very bitter and have been hurt by a lot of men. And so I want to be a good role model for men in the context of women, so that they, for women that have been hurt or abused or whatever, like, there are good men out there that will value you and that will appreciate you, you know. And so that's really, I just try to be the kind of person that I feel like would be a good example for people, you know.
Cool.
And I think that'll take care of itself as far as how that impacts the world. If it does, maybe, you know.
Or, I mean, impacting lives, you know, one at a time is just a result of what you're doing and working on in yourself and reflecting out there. So I agree. Yeah. Man, Ryan, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Brother.
I know guys can find you, The Wisdom of Kings, on Instagram. Super simple. Yep. It's a very sticky title. Like, it was immediately, I follow that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage any man who listens to this to plug into that and read it like a book. Like, you know, a little bit every time it comes out. Follow it, get the notifications or whatever it is that you do in Instagram. Again, I'm not an Instagram guy, but I appreciate the work. Yeah. I appreciate the work you're doing. I really do.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this, make sure you go subscribe, do the thing. Go really seriously, go follow Ryan on The Wisdom of Kings on Instagram, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's someone worth watching and listening to, because he just really is emulating what he's doing and what he's working on. So just take that action right away, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, your family, and follow us on social media. If you are a father, make sure you join our Facebook group, the Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more podcasts from the Brotherhood of Fatherhood.